Welcome back, everyone. My name is Bob German. I'm a developer advocate for Microsoft 365, and I'm here with my colleague Ayca Bas. And we're talking about Bot Composer. It turns out Ayca has a lot of background in cognitive services, so I was really excited to have her on these videos because she can actually explain how some of the AI aspects of the bot are working. So take it away, Ayca.
Yes. So before we start jumping into our Who Online bot, I want to introduce you cognitive services. So cognitive services are a collection of AI services provided by Microsoft for developers. If you are not data scientist, if you don't know how to create machine learning models, and if you know how to code basically, cognitive services are actually for you because these are REST APIs at the end of the day. And each REST API provides some AI services. You don't have to know any machine learning modeling, or you don't have to be a data scientist to do that. You will just create your AI piece, and you will use your AI piece as a REST API, and we will show you how to do that in a second. So there are different services available in cognitive services. We have vision, speech, language, knowledge, and search. For today, we will cover language understanding, which is a part of language piece. It basically helps us helps make our bot smarter. Basically, when you create a bot, either using Bot Composer or Power Virtual Agents, or you can use Bot Framework, you are actually creating the structure of your bot. You create your dialogues and you build your bot structure with your code, and your bot only responds to your user, whichever you write down there. In this case, we can say our bot skeleton is Bot Framework, but our brain is language understanding. We call it LUIS, Language Understanding Intelligence Service. So basically, we need a brain to our bots. That's why we're covering language understanding here. There's a great feature available in Bot Composer, which I'm actually really excited, and I learned this from Bob. Bot Composer has a direct integration with LUIS. I've been using LUIS for many years now, and I always use LUIS as a REST API in my Bot Framework app. And you have to call REST API to get your LUIS service. But for now, you don't have to go to different screens to create your LUIS, or you don't even have to handle or understand the cognitive services piece either. Bot Composer cover everything in one single tool, and you don't actually do much here. What we do, I will explain in a very basic. We create our intents, which are actually covering single actions. This intent can be greeting, book flight, help. It can be non-intent, again, when you don't understand something. It can be cancel. Again, it can be order pizza. Any action you want to do with your bot, we call it intent. Here in our example, we have book a flight. In this case, book a flight is our intent, and every time when we create a new intent, we of course need to explain what we want to do with this intent to our bot, to our LUIS model. So we have to give examples. Each example we give to our intent is utterance. So in this case, we have one sentence example to book me a flight intent, book me a flight from Berlin to Paris on Wednesday. So this sentence is actually teaching our LUIS model that, okay, this intent is doing booking a flight. In greeting, we will give another example to our bot saying, hi, how are you? Hello. In this case, our LUIS will understand, okay, this is about greeting people, so on and so forth. So each intent will have different example sentences, and these example sentences are utterances. And finally, the third thing and very important piece are entities. entities are making our bot really, really smart. If you have entities, then people really think that your bot is super smart. When you add utterance to your intent, for example, book me a flight from Berlin to Paris on Wednesday, your bot, the next question from your bot will be, of course, where are you going? Or where are you coming from? Or when do you want to go? If your user gives you a sentence says, book me a flight from Berlin, and if you ask them, where are you going or where are you come from, then your bot will not look smart enough. That's why we use entities. Right. We create entities to understand the sentences inside sentences. These entities can be location, date, time, or actually anything you want to tag. If you are, let's say, selling mobile devices, you can use entities to understand what is the brand of the mobile device. Or if you're ordering pizza, then you can add entity as types of pizza. If you're creating flight bots, then you can add cities as an entity to understand what is in our sentence, instead of asking many questions to our user. So we are actually grabbing some variables from the sentences given by the user. So this is pretty much it. We have three main things available in language understanding intelligence service: intents, utterances, and entities. If you know those three, I think you're good to go with language understanding.
So, Ayca, would it be fair to think about the intent as like a verb and the entities as like the object of the verb, if you're looking at it from a grammatical point of view?
Yeah, I think this is a really good explanation. I use all these sentences, but you summarize it very well. Definitely, it works like that. We explained all these, Bob, but when we go to Bot Composer, we don't actually have to handle all these in LUIS, because Bot Composer does all the magic behind the scenes, right?
Exactly. So the first thing that we did from the original bot, we used the regex recognizer, which just does pattern matching. So in that case, there would be no way to, I mean, maybe you could have some keyword that recognizes the user's intent, but there would certainly be no way to get those entities or to really have the user words it differently, and the bot just gets confused, right? So now we've switched over to default recognizer, which is LUIS. And then, as you said, there's actually a couple of places in here we can look at these things. One is there's a user input tab where all of this is here. And actually, sometimes you even want to show the code. Maybe you want to paste these in from somewhere, so it's a nice way to do it. Or we can come in here and actually just look at these triggers. So like who's online is one of the intents. It says intent right there. And here are those, you were saying that we have to kind of train it with these examples. There are the examples, right?
Yeah, so these are utterances. Every time we add a sample sentence here, it will go to LUIS and train our intent behind the scenes. But we don't have to do that, because Bot Composer copies everything from here and gives it back to LUIS to train itself.
Nice. So this one is a little bit fancier. So this first one is you can ask who's online, but there's no entities, right? But if I want to know about a particular user, suddenly I need to understand these entities. Maybe can you explain kind of how these work and what's going on here?
So in LUIS, we have entities. You can create different types of entities. We have basic one and we have hierarchical one. We also have pre-built entities. In this case, we are using pre-built entities. What is pre-built entities? And these are actually really common ones used by many developers. For example, date, time, location, and another one is person name, because most of the developers, if you're building bot, you may need to catch up username. In our case, we're trying to catch username. That's why we're using person name pre-built entity. If you check out our trigger phrases, which are utterances, you will see that each name, as Tony, Katie, Madeline, Parker, these names are tagged as person name, username. That means we are able to understand a name from my sentences. In this case, we don't have to ask, oh, okay, who are you looking for? And we don't have to type Bob or Aicha. When we say, where is Katie? Then we understand that, okay, user is asking about Katie. We grab the Katie and send to our bot code as username. And then we use this username to call graph. Basically, we use entities to catch variables, and in our case, our variable is names. So yeah, so entities are really cool, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then what happens here is, suppose one of these things gets triggered, right? It's going to call this other dialogue. So using the modularity that we talked about in the last video, and it will come down here. And the first thing that this dialogue does is it reads the username. So this is sort of a notation inside of Bot Composer, the @ sign, that says the last recognition that you did, you being the Bot Composer, hey bot, the last time you recognized something, I think you extracted something called username, right? And so here's that entity. Person name is the pre-built, and username is my local name for this, because maybe my utterance had two people in it, and I need to say, give something, transfer something from Alice to Tony or something, right? So there could be more than one. So username, that's why username is, when we come into this dialogue here, is going to be populating this variable at username. Then what happens is, maybe the user didn't specify the user, right? Like some of these utterances are, check on someone. I want to check on someone. We didn't specify. Or maybe Lewis was smart, but not quite smart enough. And maybe somebody had an unusual name and it didn't match person name, the built-in entity. So in that case, the dialogue is going to prompt the user. And this is an interesting one, because these two shapes are actually one action in Bot Composer. And it will only prompt the user if the variable is empty. So the result of this is going to go into a variable called dialog.username, which means it's scoped for this dialogue. And I will tell you that if that variable was already filled in up above, it doesn't ask. It just passes, it just drops right through. So that gives us the behavior of, the user can say which person, and we won't go on back and ask them the way you were saying before, right? Where the bot looks kind of stupid if you say, I want to fly to Berlin, and it says, where do you want to leave from? It's like, I just told you. It solves that problem. And then also, if the user didn't specify, or if for somehow it got confused, it will ask the user.
Yes, exactly. So in this case, our LUIS model is deciding, first of all, which intent to go, in Bot Composer case, which trigger to go. And then if we have some more information in our sentence, then we are also able to grab that info and use it in our Bot Composer bot too, which is awesome. But behind the scenes, if you want to check out what's happening, Bob, would you like to go ahead and show our LUIS model?
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, Bot Composer is actually creating LUIS models, and we don't have to do anything in LUIS.ai. But if you check out your LUIS.ai account, then you will see there's a model created for you. Bot Composer is doing all these for you. So here we have Who's Online model, and we have our intents. You may realize these intents are exactly the same things with triggers available in our Bot Composer. Every time when Bob creates a greeting or a log off or Who's Online trigger, it will become an intent in the model. If we go to, for example, Who's Online intent, you will see we have utterances here, which are the trigger phrases you added. Whenever you add a new sentence in the trigger phrase, it will become available here as utterance. So when we add a new sentence here, our LUIS model will automatically be trained, and then it will learn a lot more. When you add more sentence, that means your bot and your LUIS becomes smarter. That's why we need to add more and more sentence to make our bot smarter. So there's a decision-making process behind the scenes from LUIS. When we're in our LUIS model, when we type anything, for example, Bob, if you go to test on the top right, and when we type anything here, who is online, our bot is actually doing scoring between intent. This is happening in LUIS piece. If we inspect this, you will see that all of our intents are scored, and the highest score is actually our result. Once we see that who is online intent is the correct answer, then we get this result as a JSON format, and our bot composer dialogues are using this. So it is basically a prediction at the end of the day. And if you want to increase the score for each prediction, for example, for us now, whose online prediction is 0.96, if you want to do this 99, then you have to add more examples, more sentences, and we have to train our LUIS with more utterances, with more examples. How much we have examples, that much our bot becomes smart. So that's pretty much it. And I think it's really fun that we don't have to handle all this because we have one platform, Bot Composer, which handles everything behind the scenes for us. But we wanted to share the behind the scenes details as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like about this and working with a team of people, so first, you may want to think about whether people are sharing this LUIS service. So this is something, we'll point you to the documentation on how to set this up. You have to do something in Azure first. And then you will tell the bot composer, if I come into manage here, you can come down here to the authoring resource, and you'll get this key right here. And then what I had to do was inside of my bot composer settings, I had to come and set that same key. And it will do this for you. If you click set up language understanding, it will actually guide you. I probably don't even need documentation. It will guide you through this. The question then really is, do I have my own instance? Does each developer in a team have their own, or do they share? And there's advantages and disadvantages to both. But Bot Composer makes it easy if they each have their own, because what happens is that it's going to publish the intents from Composer every time you change them. This will make it slow when you go to start your bot. If you've just changed some of the trigger phrases, you'll find it's taking extra time. What's going on is that Bot Composer is pushing all of the updates into LUIS and then retraining LUIS. So this is, I think, wonderful, because in the old days, I used to come in here to LUIS and actually export the model. So I would come into here and I would click this and I would export this into JSON, and then I would upload it into my project so that I could put it into source control so that other people could get to it. Now this is not necessary. All I have to do is give each developer their own LUIS instance. And this is I'm using the free instance, so this isn't super expensive. If I want to scale it up, it would cost money. But if for just development use, you can use the free instance. And then if I'm working on V1 of the bot and Ayca's working on V1.1, and we're both working and adding different intents, we're not messing each other up as we're developing our part. It's going to keep everything up to date. And then when I merge Ayca's changes into my code in GitHub, it will automatically pick up all of the intents and triggers and entities that she has defined. And I absolutely love that because we used to have to keep everything in sync manually. And this is so much better. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and like our video, and we'll keep making them.
Bye.
Bye.